Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the Flat Earth Debate pre-show and after-show goodness. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum to keep up to date with the community debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and Krypton link in the info box. I think that's my cue to hand over to the panel while I set up for the live show.
You can't have an adult conversation. You're acting just like a bunch of globers that can't take your time and just be quiet. You can't take.
I'm here to treat out of control mental patients.
Yes, but at the same time,
is exactly that.
It doesn't matter. We're still not here to overtalk each other. We're not here to overtalk each other either. We're here to have a conversation. It doesn't matter. I'm still talking, damn it. Now, what I'm saying is we can have a conversation without everybody talking over each other.
Damn.
See, because all you guys are doing, this is why glow people have an argument, because they come on the show, it's only one person, but instead of letting one-on-one happen, you got 5 or 6 people coming out of the background, just keep on talking. That makes you the wrong one.
It took an hour, and she couldn't admit.
Yeah, but you know why? You know why it took an hour? Because people kept butting in and won't let them have that conversation. Just keep yourself on mute and then let other people get that cleared up.
You're the only one that can butt in. Nobody else can butt in but you.
Listen, right? No, it's not that nobody.
We've given her over like 200 hours of talking on the debates, and she never answers questions.
Hey,
so listen at you right now.
Crazy shit ever.
Hey, Nathan.
We know or he or whatever that is.
Listen, I talked to Nathan, and I said, Nathan, do you mind if I jump in and mediate for you? Now, when I did that, that meant I was trying to mediate the conversation. Does anybody understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. So when but if you get, shut up. So if you get it, then why are you? Listen, if you get it,
so we do what we like.
Listen, if you get, man, you guys are. If you get it, then why are you jumping in? How can I?
Whenever you want, James. It's all good.
So if you get it, man. So if I'm trying to mediate, how can I mediate if I got 3 or 4 people jumping in on the side?
You're not a mediator.
Yes, I was a mediator. I was. Yes, I was. Yes, I was, because I agreed with Nathan and he allowed me to mediate.
Yeah, well, you
he already destroyed her for 20 minutes.
So what you're basically telling me is that if Nathan gives me a few minutes and allows me to mediate, all you guys can jump in and say, no, I can't do it. Is that what you're telling me?
We've sized it up.
Nobody
just
stopped
answer
you
my
from doing it when you did it, though.
Answer my question.
Nobody stopped you from doing it when you wanted to do it, right?
Just answer my question. Is if Nathan gave me the authority to go ahead and mediate that conversation, do you guys have the authority to jump in and just take control of it?
We have the authority to accept or ignore any authority suggested by anyone.
Right. So in other words,
respect Nathan.
So
that's about it.
So what you're basically saying is you'll just do whatever you want and rumpus the show and make it totally disorganized, and you could care less.
Sometimes, yeah, that's happen.
Yeah. So that's really ignorant.
What happens when you have 10 people talking? Listen, Flick. This is what happens when you have 10 people talking, and for the past hour, the whole conversation is you, Brenda, who just can't determine what a picture is, and Nathan, obviously, because it's his show. So basically, it's just you somehow that just came in last week, and suddenly you're a mediator. I don't know how the fuck that happened. And you think that
he was promoted.
I could tell you one way that it happened because nobody else stepped up to the plate and tried to mediate.
No, because
that's not true. I mediate all the time, but there's only so much a mediator can do when somebody is this insane.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
and
it
plus you
is.
can't mediate when you're having a conversation with a brick wall.
There's a difference between mediating.
I've actively analyzed her for over 2 years.
There's a difference between mediating and just jumping. Listen, here's the thing. If Brenda is such a person that can't be reasoned with, then why not allow her on the show at all? Why allow a person?
Because
can I finish? Can I make my statement, please? Why allow a person on a show that you know that's just going to constantly interrupt? If that's the case, then if you're going to convict her before she ever even comes on, then don't let her come on.
We don't convict her before she ever comes on.
That's what you're doing.
We have a history with her to reflect upon.
But that history, when a person starts talking and you start judging them on their history, so you've already convicted them.
Yeah, what they do matters. That's right.
Like, I don't know what happened. I kind of like you. Now you're kind of getting annoying.
I really could care less what you like. I'm not here to like you.
Hold on. Just take 5 for a second.
I know.
Right?
I'm just like,
I thought it was annoying yesterday.
It's a tough gig, right?
It's extra annoying today.
It's easy to get annoyed really quickly, right?
Well, it's fine with me, like I said.
I know you mean right, but you just misjudged. It happens.
I didn't miss. No,
yeah,
I didn't miss.
You sized the rope wrong.
That's not going to help.
There's going to be some kind of reasoning.
Flat Earth debate,
it's not.
Slick.
Yeah, welcome. I'm smiling, Slick, and I'm pleased because this is like a baptism of fire, right? I mean, when you said, "Can I mediate?" My response was, the only rule is don't swear. So if you choose to mediate, you can. But as you found out, it gets really frustrating really quickly, right? And what happened was you ended up in the same exact circle as I was in with her, right?
Right.
So,
but see, this is what I wanted to do, Nathan. To end the circle, what I wanted to do was give her the last word and then cut it off. Now she's done. That's how I was trying to end it before I got there.
She's done because I made her mad at telling her that her boyfriend is a picture in her wallet. That's when she lost her shit and started calling me names, and then
right. But you didn't have to do that. But you didn't have to. You didn't have to do that.
I did, because I wanted her out of there because she's annoying as fuck. Sorry.
Okay. So here's my question. If you want somebody out of there, then what is the point of having a conversation?
I like to have a conversation with other people, not her.
But this is a flat Earth debate where you have Globers and flat Earth debate the conversation.
Nobody stopped her from coming in.
There's 7 billion Globers that they can come in. I don't want to deal with Brenda again.
Then why don't? Okay, so when Brenda comes in, why don't you just put yourself on mute? Go make a cup of coffee or something.
Because I just woke up and I don't want to do that. I want Brenda out so we can talk about other things. Because debating what a picture is and what a chair is for an hour is kind of ridiculous.
But you don't have to get involved.
I want to get involved, just like you don't have to get involved.
I don't know. I kind of liked the conversation up until she went just swearing straight out to everyone.
But she shouldn't have been talking to everyone.
People that watch this shit.
Listen, she shouldn't have been talking to everyone. That's
Come on
the
now,
problem.
Slick. Don't rumpus Arwin.
Right.
Damn, this rumpus
down.
Dude, I kind of like personally when Brenda does her thing, because it just shows her that she just has this weird lack of focus. And going over this and conceptualizing what is a picture reality, it helps people focus. So I think it's necessary. I wanted to make having Brenda on every now and then, just maybe not every day. And the same goes for Rumpus.
Go on, Earth Flatten there, and then I'm going to start the live show.
I like the conversation too. It was really cool. Cool episode.
I've not smiled.
It lasts 2 hours straight, then you get a headache.
I've not smiled that much in ages, Slick. You're quickly becoming one of my favourite people, mate.
I'm going to moderate between Slick and the rest of the panel when we go live.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. And if you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Quantum Eraser, Slick James Johnson, Paul, Nathan, Flatten Earth, Arwin, and Anon Moto. Good to have you all.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
Hello.
And Chocolate saying. Shout out to Colin Turner for smashing the super chat. So, on the last show, there was someone in the comment thread that said we could do like a basics course, or somebody doing a channel that had basics about flat Earth, and I think the way they phrased it was something along the lines of how we can understand that there is no curve. And it's hard to kind of say, well, there is no curve. I try and summarise that by saying the Earth is obviously and observably flat. But what I'm hoping, if the panel's agreeable, is that as we go through the flat Earth housekeeping questions, they get expanded on a little bit, so that if you were a newbie listening to this very show, you'd hear the explanation given for the question itself. Now, I would argue that a lot of the questions are answered in and of themselves, but we'll see how we get on, okay? So we'll start with the most important question. Chocolate, you perked up, hopefully. Any signs of curvature?
No signs.
None at all whatsoever. And I could expand on that, too.
Go ahead.
So, I do observations over large bodies of water. I've used, we just recently went to Salton Sea and we reflected a mirror, the sunlight in a mirror 18 miles across the lake. And that is an observation that would only be possible with the Earth being flat and water not curving. And we see things further than we should, according to their strawman Earth curvature calculators. Everything that we see, the majority of it is flat and observable.
18 miles?
Yeah, we just did it on Saturday. We 18 miles at Salton Sea in California. It's the largest lake, the largest body of water in California.
Did that with mirror, the mirror?
Yes. Yeah.
Which,
so we reflected
which would,
the sunlight.
Of course, have to be direct line of sight, right?
Right, direct line of sight, of course. And that, according to the strawman calculator, that's a 45-foot bulge of water that is not there. If the Earth was a sphere, 24,000 miles in circumference, with a radius of 3,959 feet. And later that night, we also shined a laser across the lake at 18 miles as well. So I've done multiple observations.
That doesn't account for refraction.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You didn't account for refraction. So I'm playing
devil's advocate. That is accounting for refraction. That absolutely is accounting for refraction. We use the Walter Bisling's Advanced Earth Curve Calculator, which accounts for refraction, and you can actually increase the refraction if you want. You would need a 95% refractive rate to see what was on the other side, and you would also need a radius of 89,000 miles of the Earth to see that.
We're gonna have to see evidence of that.
No, what he's saying, John, is that when they plug the numbers for this observation into the begging the question proof of, I think, perspective hijacking curve calculator, and you use the Walter Bislin equivalent that can let you massage the begging the question on steroids that is 7/6 of the presupposed radius of an Earth, then you have to, number one, push the radius value up massively, and increase the refraction value to 95% on Walter Bislin's calculator to make this be fudged enough to make the observation make sense. And ultimately speaking, the bottom line is you're just seeing stuff, right? There's no need to put it through a model and a calculation.
I'm sorry, he stepped on you, the last part, Nathan.
He's talking to you, the other Nathan.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was talking to you. Oh, we got two
No, he's talking
Nathans,
to
so
you.
Nathan was stepping
yeah.
on Nathan. Okay, so you solved the refraction problem. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have taken it to account, and I've extrapolated that.
You
Even
might want to
with
bring that
refraction.
on here, maybe tomorrow, the next day, and present that.
Yeah, we could do it right now. I could put. I have the link. I have the videos in the Hangout group, and we could go to the business calculator.
Could you do it? Could you do it tomorrow or the next day? Because it'll waste time. Why don't you consolidate it and put it together, and then just go over it concisely?
Okay. Well, I won't be able to be at my computer, so I won't be able to share my screen. So Nathan or somebody else will have to share their screen to view it.
That's gonna be a problem then. Is there a point where you can get to a computer screen?
2 minutes to pull it up right now, huh?
Are you at your computer right now?
No, I'm on my mobile phone. Else I would do that myself. I mean, it would literally take 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We'll talk about it later. Let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
Well, it's still, nonetheless, you're seeing this mirror reflection, and it's just being seen. There's no explanation required other than you see it at a long distance. And I've left this still on page because I think in a last show, someone who sent a super chat said, "Well, what's the deal with the Isle of Man picture?" Well, it's just a similar deal, right? There's a lighthouse. It's 31 miles away. We just see it. There's no explanation required whatsoever. We just see something. There it is. However, if you want to plug that through a calculator that assumes there's a radius to Earth, it's not supposed to be there. You don't see it. There's an Earth curve in the way. Same story as the other Nathan. So that's the story. What's up, sausage? So yeah, that's the story. You just see stuff that's very far away, and if you beg the question and assume you're on a sphere that has a curvature, you shouldn't see it. It's pretty much that simple. The Earth's obviously flat. It's observably flat. And you see stuff that's a lot further away. And when they claim that it's because of refraction, it's like, okay, so this whole island on screen now, according to them, is a mirage. The entire thing, none of it's where it's supposed to be. It's all in different positions, being refracted and illumined around the curve of the presupposed Earth. It's all nonsense. But that's the bottom line. You know, none of that stuff is necessary to explain just seeing stuff. So yeah, anybody else got anything to add for a newbie that might be watching and listening to the fact that the Earth is obviously and observably flat, no curvature?
That's a very good answer, Nathan. Thank you very much.
Any more?
Nope.
What about axial rotation then? So again, in the same vein, if you were a newbie watching this and you were under the impression that the Earth rotates and spins, and I ask you the question, any signs of Earth rotation, how would you boil that down to its most simplistic form for a newbie?
Well, how do you start? Yeah, the Earth is stationary. There's no motion, because if the Earth was a ball in motion with an axis, then there would be all kinds of things happening all over the place.
Like I see stars rotating.
Yeah, but that's just optical.
Okay, you see stars rotating, so what?
Doesn't that mean that the Earth's rotating?
No.
No, only if you assume the Earth to be a ball rotating underneath.
I was just about to ask John to do exactly that, so why? Why would you assert such nonsense? You tell me.
Well, I was told ever since grammar school, through grade school, through high school, and the narrative that it is the Earth that's rotating. We have Foucault's pendulum that proves the Earth's rotating.
Excellent leading. So I would assert in this instance that the Coriolis effect is our best friend, and it's tied up in confusion and distraction and obfuscation and vitriol and all sorts of nastiness if you cover this subject. And I think that's for a good reason. There is an assertion that the rotation of a sphere Earth on its axis creates this effect, Coriolis effect. And there is no Coriolis effect. We do not observe it. Hey, Apollo, how you doing? No, Mike.
Hey.
Oh, hello. Good to have you. So we all, flat earthers, need to become extremely well versed in what the Coriolis effect is. It's asserted that the sphere Earth has one, and we should all know what that means and how that would actually affect things that go on in a rotating reference frame. So, yeah, understanding the Coriolis effect is to understand how the gyroscope and the pendulum and aeroplanes and all of these things are doublespeak nonsense for an effect that doesn't happen.
But wait a second, the Coriolis effect is very well displayed and demonstrated by hurricanes, storms, typhoons that spin in the southern hemisphere. They spin one direction, and in the northern hemisphere above the equator, they spin the other direction.
Okay, so the Coriolis effect is describing an apparent deflection. So if you are to give an equivalence of a roundabout with a ball and you holding that ball, rotating on the roundabout and throwing the ball travels in a straight line but appears to deflect because you rotate underneath it. If you describe two different actual physical rotations that deviate from one another, that would be an actual deflection, not an apparent deflection caused by Coriolis, John.
What's this? You said, I noticed the word apparent. You stressed apparent. What's the difference between apparent and actual?
Okay, if I throw a baseball and as I release the ball, I flick my wrist such that the ball takes a curved trajectory, that would be an actual deflection. So it's actually curving through the air because I've put a spin on the ball when I released it. That's an actual deflection. If you are on a roundabout and you release a ball from your hand and don't put a spin on it to give it a curve, you just throw it in a straight line, then the ball moves in a straight line. However, because you rotate underneath the ball travelling in a straight line, it appears to deflect. And in the same way, a pendulum that swings back and forth in a straight line, back and forth, it will appear to deflect and move round in a rotation because the Earth rotates underneath the pendulum in the same way the roundabout rotates underneath the ball. So you have what looks like a deflection, but in actuality the pendulum and the ball on the roundabout example both simply move in a straight line. It just appears that they are deflecting, unlike the ball with the baseball. When someone flicks their wrist and actually spins the ball to get it to curve, that would be an actual deflection.
That's very well explained. So what you're saying is the people that have told me that hurricanes and typhoons spin in opposite directions, those aren't apparent deflections because clouds don't apparently deflect, right? So they lied to me. So the toilet water draining in opposite directions, that's just somebody made that up and people have run with it, right?
It's part of the doublespeak nonsense of the Coriolis effect, because Coriolis is real and very easy to describe. If you can empty your cup of the nonsense that's it's been filled with in terms of things like toilet water and hurricanes and things that are actual deflections. So the Coriolis, as I said earlier, is very simply described as a ball in your hand on a roundabout being released in a straight line, but appearing from your vantage point to curve because you continue to rotate underneath. So in the case of an alleged sphere Earth with a Coriolis effect, then you have their example of a bullet leaving the rotating reference frame. So when it's in the gun, it's attached to the frame that's rotating, like the roundabout. Then when the gun discharges the bullet enters the second reference frame. It's no longer attached to the roundabout / sphere Earth. And therefore you see an apparent deflection. The bullet appears to be moving in a curved path because the Earth underneath continues to rotate after it leaves the barrel of the gun. That is what is alleged to happen. An apparent deflection because the Earth rotates underneath. The problem, and this is the bit that everybody needs to understand intrinsically, the problem is that if the bullet appears to take a curved path because the Earth rotates underneath, then ipso facto, the Earth rotates underneath and would also rotate underneath birds, flies, insects, aeroplanes, helicopters, balls that you throw from your hand. In fact, anything that leaves the rotating reference frame to achieve the very claim of a Coriolis effect. And here's the kicker. The problem is that no one ever observes this. This never, ever happens. Nobody observes a helicopter taking off, hovering, and a different country coming towards it as the Earth rotates underneath. Because the Earth does not rotate underneath. It doesn't rotate underneath aeroplanes. It doesn't rotate underneath gyroscopes. It doesn't rotate underneath insects. It doesn't rotate underneath balls or bullets. It doesn't rotate.
So, when I was in the club listening to all these GIs talk about the Coriolis effect and how they have to adjust for each of their shots, they were just telling tales out of school and then trying to impress the ladies in the bar. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. I mean, there's a certain amount of rifling. Maybe they've just hijacked the rifling action that might cause an actual deflection, as opposed to an apparent deflection because the Earth turns underneath, as alleged, when using sniper rifles as an example of the Earth rotating underneath the bullet after it's left the gun.
And we also have the Marine Sniper's Guide on PDF file, and there's literally zero mention of Coriolis effect in the Marines Sniper Rifle Guide.
Huh. Fair enough. Next time at the club, I'm going to call those GIs out. All right.
As a matter of fact, I could send you that PDF in the Hangout group right now, and you can see.
Got a new guest. Hold on one second. Hi, Christopher Wilson. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you? Can y'all hear me good?
Yeah, we hear you fine. That's good to have you. We're
awesome.
Involved in an elongated housekeeping session, so we've only covered axial rotation and curvature so far, so I'll move on to any evidence of a gas pressure being maintained without a container.
No,
Nothing doing.
Negative.
Yes.
Wait a second. We have gas pressure gradients. What's up with that?
How do we have that gas pressure in the first place? That's the question.
Well, we got gas pressure gradients. What happens is, we all know this for a fact, right? Everyone agrees that there's gas pressure gradients within the atmosphere.
Yes,
right?
We all agree.
Okay,
Yep.
So we can move on from that point. So, can't we extrapolate that, from sea level and then going up, let's say 1,000 feet elevation, that at some point that it can just go into a zero or near zero level of pressure?
No.
What's wrong with that?
Well, that would violate the second law of thermodynamics. If there was a zero or near zero value above the gas pressure, then that pressure would expand in all directions into the available space.
Huh, that's interesting. I seen a video the other day with sulfur hexafluoride in a fish tank where they put the sulfur hexafluoride in, and it's a gas. And what they did was they put this aluminum boat or a boat-looking object down on there, and it floated. It looked like it was floating on nothing, and it didn't have a container. Now it had floor and sides, and it did have a container temporarily when they were putting the gas in, but they slowly took it off and then showed the demonstration. So how does that happen?
Well, did you say there was a container in both instances during the demonstration and its containment prior to the demonstration? There was, in fact, a container.
Yes, the fish tank, it wasn't a closed container. The fish tank wasn't a closed container. It had sides and a floor. But like I said, temporarily when they were putting the gas into the fish tank, you could hear the gas going in. They had covered temporarily the top with a piece of plywood, something. I can't remember what it was, but it was a top. But then they took the top off. All right. Are you guys familiar with that video?
Yeah, I've seen the video of the sulfur hexafluoride demonstration in a fish tank.
Okay.
What's your point though? What's your claim?
My point is that the gas, after they took the top off, well, it looked like the gas didn't disperse because they put that aluminum boat on there, and it seemed to float on nothing.
Right, but that gas is massively more dense than the air that it's in. So relative density would dictate that it's going to sit at the bottom.
That's interesting. I have to get back to you on that. I don't want to bog the whole discussion down. So I'll get back to you on that. Okay. Is that your final answer?
Yeah. Do I need more?
Okay. No. I'll hold there so we can move on.
Okie dokie. So if it is to be asserted that the sky is a vacuum, then the gas would fill the space. So in terms of the phraseology of the question, how can we have gas pressure without a container? Or is there any evidence of gas pressure being maintained without a container? The question answers itself because the necessary antecedent is mentioned within the question. A container, something for the pressure to press upon. So, John, maybe you can enlighten the audience. What's the measurement? How do they come up with the measurement for gas pressure? What is that measurement?
I don't know who you're talking. I'm not John. I'm the Glober.
You're Johnny Globehead today.
And you're just sort of rumpusing. I already said we stopped this discussion. I wanted to move on. I understand you're just pounding on me here.
Okay, well I'll end it by saying it's the force over an area.
Thank you. I'd already acquiesced to your argument. I wanted to move on to the next point.
Right. Has anybody else on the panel got anything else to add in terms of in my opinion, the most comprehensive debunking of the heliocentric system there is? After you rip apart the fact there's no curve and that we're not spinning, number 3 on the list for me is the fact that you can't have gas pressure without a container, and it is asserted by heliocentric believers that the sky is a vacuum. So, anybody else got anything to add to that? If not, we'll move on.
No, I wanted to stop here because that's very important. Did you said that the whole heliocentric the whole heliocentric model collapses just with the gas pressure and container argument?
Yes, this is the single best heliocentric debunking there is, in my opinion.
I'm going to have to spend some time with that. I'll get back with you on the next show and see if I can't debunk you. Can we move on?
Okie dokie. I look forward to a debunking of the second law of thermodynamics. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No. Negative.
No.
Nope.
Is it? Well, wait a second. I've been told that the sun is 93 million miles away from the Earth. Now, I've been told that. I've probably seen the equations. I can't state them here, but I remember in school that there were many teachers that told me this. That was in the textbooks. I've seen it literally hundreds of times. So, listen, I have to fall back to people that are expert in this area, and it appears I had my science book out, and this is a science topic. So they were telling me this. Are you saying that they're lying?
Well, maybe I should have asked the question about the R value prior to the sun question. But the distance to the sun is essentially a begging the question fallacy on acid in terms of how they extrapolate. Number one, how to measure the distance, because they'll base that distance on the original supposition or presupposition that you're on a sphere to begin with. So in other words, you have to start with the original R value in order to get to this astronomical distance to the sun in the first instance. So maybe I've asked the order, in this instance, I've probably asked the questions in the wrong order and should have asked about evidence for the R value prior. But we'll go on to that immediately after, unless anybody else has got anything to add to the distance to the sun. Nobody has the vaguest idea how far the sun is, because you have to know either how big it is or how far it is to extrapolate out that data. And we don't know either. We've just got an angular size in the sky. Well, if we don't know the distance and we don't know how physically big it is to begin with, then you can't extrapolate either. You need that information. So nobody knows the distance to the sun, and we're not travelling to the sun. So we just have this Kepler's third law applied, and that's basically what we have to give us these distances based on a reification of a sphere, based on the sun's trajectory to begin with to give you the radius.
So you're saying that it wasn't a measurement, it was calculated. That I think that's what you're saying, and I think I understand. I'm going to have to look up the difference between calculations, then extrapolations, and measurements, because I understand that measurements are quite different than calculations. So that's what I gathered.
I'm still trying to figure out what radius we're trying to figure out, because the first question was something about a curvature that a ball would need, something like that, and there's none of that. So
yeah, we'll get back to we're going to get back to that. And your name is what? Chocolate?
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah, I'll call you Vanilla from now on. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, those calculations are like Nathan was saying. They're based off of two assumptions that we do not know, which is the distance of the sun and the size of the sun. So you have an equation with X, Y, and Z as the numbers, and they're just plugging in the numbers that they think are correct to get the number that they want.
So it's based on geometry?
No, it's based on guessing. It's based on
it's based on guessing, right? Because there is no solid measure. There is no proper unit of measure in their calculation. It's all guessing. But don't we know the size? I remember the size of the sun also in those textbooks. So they know the size of the sun, correct?
No, that's also based off of an assumption.
What assumption is that?
See if anybody
the
gets
assumption
it.
that they know how far it is.
No, there's a specific thing.
The assumption of the whole calculation.
No, there's a specific thing.
The assumption that we're standing on a ball, and then one of the lights in the sky are the same size of this ball that we presuppose that we're standing on.
Bingo!
And then,
Well, they also use the moon.
Let's not brush past that. So it's Huygens, right? Am I right in that, John? I don't want to get that wrong.
Who's John?
I think it's Christian Huygens that essentially assumed that Venus was the same size as the sun, as the Earth, sorry. So from that point on, you can then apply Kepler's third law and just extrapolate out all of the different distances and sizes from there. Once you make the first assumption, which is that Venus and Earth are the same size. So when you hear, it sounds benign when you hear it, but you'll all recognise this phraseology, Earth's sister planet. Well, what does that really mean? Well, it means they've assumed it's the same bloody size. It's a light in the sky, but suddenly it's a planet, like us, assumed to be spherical, and the same size. And that gives you all of the extraction data that you need from there on in. That's where you get your 93 million mile away sun from.
Now, wait a second.
About Bob.
I'm looking. Hold on a second. I got another point. I've seen the sun many times. I've been to the beach. I've been all around the world in different seasons, different times of the year, that the sun appears bigger. Sometimes just like the moon. Sometimes the moon's huge. Other times it's like it's like holding a dime in your hand. So What's going on with that? How do they know the size of the sun and moon, the actual size, when these sizes, the sizes change throughout the year based on conditions?
They don't. They just tell us that they do.
Oh, that was a very detailed answer. Thank you.
Anybody else got anything else for the distance to the sun? Any more?
I got one more to add to that, my usual phrase that the sun is exactly where it needs to be for your experience.
That's awesome. You sound like a hippie.
I'd also like to add, since they started thinking about the sun and the distance of the sun, they've changed the distance of the sun how many times? 20 times or something. First it was 1 million miles away, then it's 15 million miles away. They have constantly changed the sun, and guessing the distance of the sun is, it's not science. That's not. There's no. It's literally just guessing.
I've heard somebody say that before. The same thing that you just said. Do you know who, what, when, where, why? Not to forget the why. Who, what, and when have said that, and their distances, please? Can you, not now, can you at some point bring that up?
Yeah.
Here in the future.
I'll find it right now, and I'll bring.
Okay,
it up
thank you, and we can move on. That's a very good point. Thank you, sir. Okay, next point.
So, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Well, if it's
Nothing.
presupposed, wouldn't that mean that it doesn't exist?
They can only drill down 8 miles. That's the furthest they've ever went.
Oh, wait a second. I've seen in my earth science book, and again, many, many times, that shows the Earth and the core. It's almost, like white hot right in the middle. Now, that's in a science book. So are you saying that these people are lying?
I'm sure that if you look at that picture again, somewhere next to it, it'll say illustration as opposed to image. So that would mean it's a cartoon.
So what you're saying, Vanilla, it's just an illustration. It's not reality.
Vanilla enough. Well, I can't be chocolate vanilla swirl, man. Don't hate on the chocolate.
Is that all
they're
you
not
have,
lying
Vanilla?
to you.
So
They're not lying to you on purpose.
I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that it's in these science books that they've taught me. Are you saying that they're lying with these images and illustrations?
Yes.
They have been misinformed, and they're not being dishonest. They're teaching you what they have been taught. So they are not lying purposefully. They don't know any better.
That's fair enough.
That is
so what they're calling science, because it's in a science book. I mean, they're saying that this is science. So I thought that they validated it by experiment. I mean, that's what science is, correct?
Well, they would assume as soon as you put the word science in front of the textbook that it's science. So, yeah.
And we've also been programmed to believe, when a scientist says something, it's true. Or when a doctor says something, it's true. We have been conditioned to accept the word of our authoritative figures as truth, which is why you're asking great questions. I gotta say, I mean, they're simple questions, or not simple. They're the questions that we all have when we first hear about this. But
okay.
Each time we give you an answer.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had one more quick question.
And it said in my science book, and that is the response that we all have because we've all been taught the same thing.
So where does the magnetic field come from? Because the same science book said that the inner core is made of liquid iron and nickel, right? And they say that this the motion, the perpetual motion, I don't know where they got that from, it produces the Earth's magnetic field. So that is also untrue. Therefore.
Yes.
That is untrue.
There is something called a Curie temperature, right?
The Curie point.
Vanilla, did you say Curie temperature? How do you spell that?
Chocolate.
Curie.
So the Curie temperature. And what does the Curie temperature, what's its main point?
Name's Chocolate. If you call him Vanilla again as a black woman, I find that very offensive.
Hold on. I'm working. Hold on.
So I can just. Are you looking it up, bro? Basically, what happens is when magnetized substances are heated to an extreme degree, they lose their magnetic permeability, which means they are no longer magnetically charged.
Oh, so what you're saying is
core,
that the temperature, what they say the temperature is of the inner core, contradicts the idea of those liquid iron and nickel having magnetic properties.
Exactly. So you can observe on Earth here. You could do it yourself. Actually, you could get an iron magnet or whatever kind of magnet, and then superheat it up, and it will lose its magnetic force.
Fair enough.
That's observable.
Good
That's completely
answer.
observable.
Thank you.
What we don't observe is anything that is molten, any type of magnetically charged iron, keeping its magnetic charge when it is heated up to the Curie point. That's what it's called, the Curie point.
Curie point. All right, I got it. That's a very good answer. Thank you very much.
No
just before we move past the Molten Iron core, you touched on this a little bit, Johnny Globehead, in respect to it being taught in science class, and I like to use this particular housekeeping question to tie also, as you have done, ironically, as you're a Globehead, to the fact that science has been hijacked. So absolutely correct. We've been taught that we have a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth in science class. So after having been told that science proves things, having been told what the scientific method is and shown it, and encouraged to utilise it, formulate hypothesis, we're then told in the same classroom that we have a molten iron core. This utter nonsense that we've just pulled apart. So yeah, it is absolutely and intrinsically linked to the hijacking of science, because to assert that we have a molten iron core is a pseudoscience assertion. It's not even pseudo. It's just a declaration of nonsense. So it proves absolutely nothing. I don't think it's necessary for us to cover R values, because we kind of covered that when we were covering, I've forgotten which one now. It might have been axial rotation, I've forgotten, but we definitely covered the R value. The only one we haven't, and I'm hello sausage. I'm hoping someone will answer this question with a question. If you don't, then I'll just have to put it in anyway. So, any evidence of the scientific variety for gravity? Hoping for a question to that, as opposed to an answer.
Nope, you can't vary it.
What type of gravity are we speaking about?
Chocolate on fire. I love chocolate. You are my man. What was that, Chocolate?
You mean vanilla?
Hey, Globehead, relax. Yeah, what kind of gravity are we talking about again? Because I heard there was a bunch of types.
Okay, perfect. So, if you are watching this and you are a newbie to this subject, and somebody starts discussing gravity, the first question across your lips should be, what gravity are you referring to? So, I don't know, I'm going to see if I can keep this open to the panel so it's not just me doing it. Hey, UK Truth, how you doing?
Hi, Nathan, you all right?
Very well. So, I'm hoping someone else can expand on that rather than me. Anybody want to field that one in terms of what type of gravity are you talking about when you mention this gravity, Johnny Globehead?
Listen, all I seen was, listen, things fall. I mean, we all know this, for crying out loud, people. I mean, you flat earthers.
That's not
get a
what
clue.
gravity is.
We go outside, things drop. Planes drop. I throw a rock up, it drops. Neil deGrasse Smoking deGrasse Tyson, he gets on TV and he drops a microphone. He's gravity, bitches. What's the problem?
Okay, so and that, in your opinion, is reference to gravity. So if I have 2 tons of helium and I drop it, what happens?
Helium? How are you getting 2 tons of helium?
NASA. Doesn't matter where I got it. It's not relevant to the question. Got it on the black market, okay? I've got my helium legit. So what happens when I drop it?
You got helium. What do you got this helium in?
A container.
Okay, so it's a balloon. Like a helium balloon, like a hot air balloon.
Oh, it can be a tank. I don't think they store it all in balloons.
Right. The helium tank. Well, you got 2 tons of helium. The helium tank's on the ground. What are you talking about?
And yeah, so if I open the valve of that container containing the pressurized gas, inside the necessary antecedent to have the gas pressure, if I open that, yeah, will the helium drop in the same way the microphone does?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was at a birthday party the other day, and they had helium balloons, and what had happened was they let these balloons go. They had them tied onto the chair, and a couple of wise guys, they untied them, and all the balloons went up onto the ceiling. I think I see what you're saying. In fact, they opened the door, and one of the balloons got outside. We tried to grab it. We couldn't get it, and it flew away. I mean, it went really high. I couldn't even see it anymore. So I see what you're saying. So gravity, what you're saying is if gravity was true, then it would have the same effect on everything, and that helium balloon wouldn't have went up in the sky. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm just tackling your assertion that everything goes to the ground like Smoking deGrasse Tyson says it does. Well, that's not true, is it? So if that's the starting point, before we've even ascertained what you're going to attribute this to, Einsteinian or Cavendish-Newtonian gravity, we have got a logical inconsistency immediately, which is to say if you just drop a microphone and say, gravity bitches, you're avoiding the inevitable assertion by me that not everything goes towards the ground.
Well, it's all a matter of perspective, Nathan.
Don't forget the newest gravity, Nathan.
No, but you can just reason out that gravity, if you assume it is a force, whatever, if it just pushes on the gases that are heavier, more dense, that they go down instead of the lighter, less dense gas like helium. So you could still assume it's there. It still works.
Well, other than your insertion of this word, gravity, your explanation was sufficient without the precursor that gravity is involved and your declaration thereafter that it was involved. Your explanation didn't actually need that, did it, Alwyn?
Right, but you can still assume it's there.
Right, I mean, I can give the same relative density explanation and say, before I give the explanation, that unicorns are definitely real and the force of unicorns is definitely true if displacement occurs based on relative density. And that definitely proves that unicorns and the force thereof are possible. You see what I did there?
Right, but in contrast to trying to assume unicorns are there, if you assume that gravity is a force, then suddenly a lot of other elements, other observations start to make sense.
Don't
in a very
me.
tricky way, and that's what makes it an aberration. That's what makes it so suggestive that it is a force.
No, I am suggesting that unicorns are a force, Arwin. The force of unicorns, that I presuppose and then describe relative density and then reassert that there's a force of unicorns after describing relative density. So that makes there a force of unicorns.
A unicorn force, if you like, but assuming gravity is about assuming that force.
Unicorn force.
Which it cannot be proven to be there, but it seems there. And that's why
excuse me, disprove unicorns right now.
I don't know why I have to go off with the unicorns, because I'm not saying it is there. I'm saying it why it seems to be there, but is not. Because people will fall
unicorns
into
for you?
the assumption of it because of the railroading, the aberration.
Wait a second. Do we have another hippie on the panel there, flat earthers?
No, absolutely not. I'm being extremely technical here.
Okay. Now I got a question. You said there's 2 different types of gravity, but doesn't so somebody said Newton and Einstein. It doesn't the equations of Newton actually boil down and are subsumed by the questions of or the equations of Einsteinian gravity?
No.
Not really. No, not really, because Newton never claimed a hypothesis on gravity.
What
So
the-
it's
I didn't
completely
say
irrelevant.
hypothesis. I said equations.
Yeah, mathematically they are entirely different. So one is Euclidean 3 space, the other is pseudo-Riemannian 4 space. So one is length, breadth, depth, one is length, breadth, depth, and time. Mathematically, they couldn't be any more different. They are totally different to each other. So no, mathematically, one does not subsume the other. They are not involved with each other. They are totally different mathematically, in every respect.
Oh, I'll tell you what. My teacher is going to get an earful when I get back there because you're saying something completely opposite of what they're saying. So I don't know, you flat earthers. You
Me?
seem to have some
Are you
good
blaming me
arguments,
for
but
saying something opposite to them?
No, teachers, not you. Certainly not you.
Well, it's not their
teachers,
fault
not
either.
hippies.
They've been miseducated as well. They went through the same education system that we did. The only difference is that we stopped and examined the claims, and then we went out into the real world to see what they actually, those claims, if those claims actually do what they say that they do.
That's no
and when you
excuse.
do that, when you actually go out into the real world and question these things that we're told in school as children, then as an adult you'll find that they don't line up. And that's what you're doing right now, is you're asking the questions and we're explaining to you how they do not line up. Now you can go out and do a lot of the things that we're telling you to prove these things to yourself, because we're just strangers on a Google Hangout, and you don't know us from anybody else. But the difference between us and your teachers, that we're telling you, go out into the real world and observe these things yourself.
Well, the difference is we don't have a curriculum that forces us to censor ourselves and our own ideas that may deviate from the curriculum. That's the difference. We're free.
Yeah.
So you're
And
saying
teachers
I
are
should
telling you-
believe
Not under
hippies,
contract.
hippie flat earthers, rather than my teachers at school?
No,
Wait
we're
a minute,
saying
wait a minute, John.
don't believe us. Go
All
out
right,
to the real world and test it yourself.
Johnny, go
John,
on, Pet.
why you keep on saying hippie now? Because
John.
when you say
No, Johnny
Globehead.
Globehead.
Don't say hippie.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead. Ask your question, please.
I think he heard the word hippie and automatically assumed we were talking about him.
What's his name?
It's the Dell effect.
What's his
It's
name?
the Dell
Ask me that question.
You just assumed
God,
hippiness.
Sleepy Mario.
What's his name? Who was that asked me that question before?
That was Slick.
Sleck. So you're telling me I should believe a gaggle of hippies, one named Sleck, over my teachers at school?
No. It's just that when I use that phrase, sun is right where it needs to be for your experience, that is tied to me being a hippie. And when you say hippie in another instance, that's kind of tying me in with that too. So I'm asking that you don't use the word hippie just only for my phrase, so I don't get lumped into other things.
Okay.
So as far as your question goes, no, we're not asking you to believe us. We're not telling you you have to believe us. That is what your teacher did in school. She said, you have to believe me. You have to remember what I told you. And then you have to tell me what I told you. And if you don't tell me what I told you, you will fail and you will be miserable in life. We're telling you that there is
I understand that.
alternative
I
ideas
understand
and
what
that
you're just
you
saying.
can
But what
go
about ships
outside
going
and
over the
look at it
horizon? I
yourself.
mean, everyone knows this. So what's your answer to that, flatties?
My answer to that is they don't. And I told you at the beginning of the show, I have evidence of a mirror 18 miles away that should be 141 feet of drop that you should not be able to see unless it's 141 feet above sea level. And we had it at 4 feet and we could see it. We can see things 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles away, 100 miles away. We can see things that would be impossible to see if the Earth was a ball, 24,000 miles circumference and 3,959 mile radius.
And I also have
In
another
real life.
way to contest it. By the way, good example. And saying that nothing really that moves into the distance goes over a horizon, because it doesn't make an arc motion. What it does, it simply starts to fold within the miraging zone, going straight ahead and then disappearing in it bottom up until only a reflection of whatever the top part is reflecting on itself, and then that goes away too. So nothing goes over the horizon, everything folds into the horizon optically.
So Nathan, is anybody able to, or Nathan, can you screen share so we could show this gentleman what I'm talking about? I sent the link in my in the Hangout group. And
Anybody on the panel?
Anybody?
Can somebody
Just
bring
fast
up?
forward, turn down the volume, or I mean, you could leave it up a little bit, but it's at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. You'll see the mirror flashing at 18 miles across perfectly flat water. And I also included the advanced Earth curve calculator if you want to show him that as well, so he could see.
That's awesome that you got 18 miles, because the other one I heard was I think it was about 14. So 18 is pretty good too, man.
Yeah, we did 13 miles, and then we just recently broke that at 18 miles.
Hey, excuse me, Vanilla. I'm the one asking the questions here. All right.
I'm saying globe head. Calm down, buddy.
Okay, are you presenting your evidence? I just pulled up, and you're talking about the live stream.
No, nobody's been willing to bring it up, unfortunately. I don't know if anybody's willing to bring the other Nathan's evidence up. He's posted it in I think it's in the Google back chat, because I can't see it in the Hangout chat.
And you're saying this is direct evidence against ships going over the horizon?
Yes. Yes, it is. Absolutely, because at a 3-foot observation height, the horizon would be somewhere around 2 miles away. The horizon, which is where the Earth's curvature should start dipping down, would be 2 miles away. And we are seeing something at a 4-foot height above the water at 16 miles beyond that. So that is a direct contradiction of ships going over the horizon.
But I've seen ships disappear hull first over the horizon.
That's because your eyes are
Are you talking about this pink colored movie?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That it's pink because we're looking in near infrared, so we're looking at.
Yeah, you're looking through pink glasses. It's very hippie of you.
Yeah, hippies.
That's just how the infrared shows up.
All right. Okay, I'll present it, I guess.
Cool. And it's at 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
I'll turn off the sound, or is there no music or anything?
No, there's no music. You could turn down the sound if you want.
No, I'll just mute it.
Okay, you can just mute it.
Right. So 3 minutes and
30 seconds.
Can you make it full screen, please, Arwen?
33.
Oh, at 3.3 minutes 30 seconds. Full screen. I don't know. Like this.
There you go.
18 miles away.
Okay, I see a light. I see something reflecting. Hold on, Vanilla. I see something reflecting right on the edge there between. What is that? Water?
Yes, that's the water. And we are 4 feet above the water at 18 miles away on dry land. We're not in the water. We're on the shoreline opposite.
Optical slant.
This is really blurry for me. Hold on a second. I got this on HD.
You want to pause?
I just got a new computer, crying out loud. This looks like I'm looking through a bowl of strawberry jello.
This is the maximum quality. 720p.
Out of curiosity, hasn't Ranty, Anthony, and Travis already showed this a million times?
So there's Maccord Lighthouse at 31
Yeah.
miles, similar principle, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
still nice to
can
see
you
it.
pause it, Arwen? Pause it so you can just be steady and show the. Show it.
From my recollection, I don't think Ranty or Riley ever did a mirror reflection.
No, correct. But the principle's the same. We're seeing something very far away.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, that's the mirror that's in the distance.
Yes.
Yes,
That
sir.
is the
Well,
mirror that's in the distance.
it's something that is probably on top, reflecting light from the sun, and it so happened to gleam in between the waves of the optical slant, basically.
No, I think, what I'm asking
uh,
is, you know where that object is on the other side? You know exactly where it is?
Yes, exactly where it is. Yes.
Okay.
all right, I'm failing to see the connection here, you hippie
Okay. So.
flurpers.
So.
I've seen ships go over the horizon and their masts
No.
disappear.
And did you have a high power zoom lens so you at all to try and look and see if it actually disappeared? Because this
I had a
this
pair of
lens has an
Kmart.
83. This lens that I use has an 83 times zoom, and we're able. And not only that, but you could see it with your naked eye as well. You didn't just need the camera to see it. Everybody that was with me could see it with their naked eyes. So did you, after watching your boat disappear, then take out a telescope or a high zoom camera and look and see if it actually disappeared?
No, I
Or are you
hardly
just
ever
going
bring
off
telescopes
what
to
your
the
eyes?
beach, hippies. I bring maybe something to eat, but I did have a pair of Kmart, the small Kmart binos, and it's still, when I looked at it, it still went over the horizon mass first. Or I'm sorry, it disappeared
Mass
over the
first?
horizon, but the mass, the mass was the last thing I seen.
Right. Yeah, and you see it reflecting in on itself, right?
I didn't
Did you
see
pay
any
attention?
reflections. It went over the horizon. I couldn't see the boat anymore.
That's because there's different kinds of atmospheric conditions that happen, and something can appear to go behind the quote unquote horizon in certain atmospheric conditions. But I'm showing you a video right now. This is my own personal video that is completely contradicting what you're saying, because the horizon should be 2 miles away and we're seeing something that is 18 miles away.
Do you know
So
what I'm
What is
still
I'm
what
sorry,
is
confused?
but
this?
your
What
boat,
is this? A
on
light
the
boat?
horizon. We have hundreds and hundreds of videos, on YouTube of people going out to the beach and looking at boats, watching them disappear, and then taking their camera out and zooming in on them again.
I'm
So
going to need
how
the
about
So
names
that's
of
how
all
very,
about
those.
very
that?
I'm going to
simple.
What
need
if
the
you
names of
put
the
the
hundreds
camera
of people.
basically on the
That sounds like
water?
an ad populum fallacy. Hold on a second. Hippies, calm down. I'm going to need
What problem
the
is that?
names of these hundreds of people, right? Because that sounds like you're just making that up. Now, how does this relate to the boat? Is this a light boat? How does this relate to the boat going over the horizon? I mean, I've seen it myself.
Because it's
I've
further
seen
than the
I've
boat,
seen
sir.
many.
It
Hold
is
on,
further
hold on.
than the boat.
Wait a second. Calm down. Calm down. I've seen many videos showing this. They're all over YouTube. What's the explanation for that?
Showing
They're
what?
falling out of view due to the limited
I
viewing
just
angle and the diffraction limit of the observer or lens used
Wait a second. That's
to
a pretty
observe.
fancy word right there. Diffraction limit. What is diffraction limit?
It's
Size
complicated
don't
optics.
count. You said diffraction limit. What does that mean?
Right. Anyone want to jump in? I have to look it up again.
Yeah, what is the fraction limit?
And how does the
How much is
diffraction
commercial
limit
involved?
relate to ships going over the horizon, disappearing hull first, where only the mast are seen after a certain distance?
Type in
Let's define the Fata Morgana.
Owen. Type in Rayleigh criterion.
Oh god.
The ship is going behind a mirage.
No, Rayleigh.
How do
Rayleigh
you spell it?
criterion. Rayleigh.
Oh shit! You're watching as I'm misspelling it. That's very
Yeah,
embarrassing.
I am. Yeah,
Damn
you
it.
still presented.
Shit. Say again. How do you spell it?
Maybe you hippies should take a spelling course.
Rayleigh criterion. I think it's Leigh. I think that's right.
Rady.
Yes. It's fun watching you fumble over John being a Poe, though. I'm really enjoying it, Say. I'm not answering.
Rady criteria.
Yes, the question on the table is, what's this diffraction limit you speak of?
Oh, this is not what I think it is. Oh god, it's been such a long time. I've never really gotten into it in detail.
You guys have one toke over the line. Come on, give me the diffraction
Optics
limit.
is not my damn expertise, okay? It's very difficult for everyone.
Really, Owen?
Okay, I've already
really.
I've said that what you're seeing when you're seeing your ship go over the horizon, quote unquote, you're seeing the limit of your vision. Whether it's in a cheap pair of Kmart binoculars or your eyes, you don't have the capability to see that far. Period. You are not seeing an object
But I'm
go over
seeing
curvature.
the ship disappear. No, I'm seeing the ship disappear over the horizon. What do you mean I
That's
can't
what
see
you're
that
seeing
far?
with your eyes and a cheap pair of binoculars. I'm showing you on my video a camera with 83 times zoom, and I'm showing you an object 18 miles away.
I
That's what I'm
understand what you're
you
showing
right
me,
now.
but that's not a it's not a boat.
You're talking about. We're
It's not a
talking about
boat.
this
It's
experiment
not.
that I'm
What are
showing.
you saying? It's a light boat. Give me.
Almost
I
doing-
see these
Hold
boats.
on.
Hold on.
John is almost doing too well. He's almost doing too well. I've got to throw the bone to the panel. So if I say angular resolution limit, who can battle this argument now? Come on, guys. You're letting me down.
Gosh.
I mean, I've heard you talk about angular resolution, Nathan, but I'm not familiar with it. I'm familiar with the Earth curvature calculator and what I can see and my targets and stuff like that. So if you'd like,
you can only see so far, because after a while it's just going to disappear out of your distance because of the angular resolution. Is that correct?
So what is
How far can you see?
Yeah. So what is angular resolution?
What something appears in your field of view, 360 angular view, how all it is.
Okay, does that have something to do with the diffraction limit?
Yes. Come on.
No.
Come on, guys. Come on, you can do this.
Well, wait a second. One of the hippies said no. It doesn't have anything to do with the diffraction limit. So you guys, I tell you what, you better have a meeting or something, kumbaya, and get your story straight. So somebody said no, somebody said yes, somebody's looking up Raleigh cigarettes. What's going on with you guys?
Come on, guys. There must be somebody on the panel that can answer this. I argue this all the time. Who's paying attention?
Vanilla, mute your mic.
Okay. So there is a limit
What?
to...
I was muted.
Oh, here we go.
What
There's
happened
a
with
limit to the
question?
amount of
I'm sorry.
weed you can smoke.
It's the amount of weed you could smoke. That's a great answer, because that's what I expected from you guys. I mean, get your act together, for God's sake, man.
Is this hippie hating Glober still here, man?
Yeah, but he's yet to get an answer out of any of you on the panel. I'm really disappointed. So the question
What's
that
the
seems to
question?
have stumped you all
That was me. Man.
is...
Calm down.
Like I said, angular size is the size of something that appears in your field of view from your perspective. As it goes away, it gets smaller. Angular size of it gets smaller. You have a 360 field of view, 360 degrees field of view, and then you measure those in arc seconds and arc minutes. And as it goes further away, it gets smaller.
360
Eventually,
field of view. Wait a second. You got eyes behind your head?
I mean, you can turn around, so
you're doing really well.
View is probably depending on how old you are and how good your eyes are. Maybe 180, but maybe less, maybe more.
Right.
Look, the simple version is...
Okay, that's still not telling me why ships... I've seen this people. You've seen it
I
too.
told it because it goes behind a Fata Morgana. It goes behind a mirage. It goes behind a mirroring. Inferior mirage.
Okay, no, I've got to stop here.
That's the
Let's bring this back on track.
angle part.
So you were doing really well, Anon. So up until that point. So yes, based on the angular size of an item and the given aperture it is being viewed through, there is a limit, the angular resolution limit, to how far you can see a given object based on its angular size. At the point that it reaches the limit of resolution, i.e. the point that it starts to disappear, it will diffract. It will go into the diffraction limit of that camera.
Okay. I understand. We're back to the diffraction limit. Now, I've asked the panel to show me what this diffraction limit is. When are you going to do that?
Anybody know what if you're looking
Maybe
out?
life is short should come on the panel.
Let me contextualize it for the panel. Just let me lead the panel a little bit. So if you're looking out into the distance, what would you say is the representation of the diffraction limit? It's going really well.
The compression.
Who's John?
Yeah, okay, my bad. There must be something in a picture that we see all the time. I'll lead you a bit more. The globe heads like to measure it and claim things drop from it. Right?
I'm sorry, this is just obfuscation. I asked you hippie flat earthers, right? Please provide me an explanation why ships disappear hull first and over the horizon.
Just giving you the answer. Come on, he's leading you. I'm leading you. He's giving you the answer. Come on, don't let me down.
The angular size? What, the limit? Hold on. I got a crying baby, so sorry.
One.
It just seems like a trick question because
He's giving you the answer in the question. He's giving you the answer. He's even said the word that you just need to repeat.
Sorry, are you talking about things disappearing bottom up? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, boats going over the horizon. Let's bring this right back on track. Right, we're talking about... This has clearly got lost. Let me just bring it back on track. Stop. Let me bring this back on track.
No.
The original question is about boats going over the horizon, right?
That's apparent.
Horizon is an optical thing. It's not an actual place.
So close.
That's why I was bringing up the atmospherics and the mirroring and the miraging, because depending on what's going on, the boat might disappear, through the mirroring, the mirror image of itself, and of course you have haze and all that, and eventually disappears. And if you take that same picture with no boat there and you crank up the contrast, you actually see the boat even further. And the whole thing. I mean, Ranty has a great video demonstrating all this. So I don't know why we're doing this.
Okay, so we're talking about we're talking about boats going over the horizon. The follow-up question is, what is the diffraction limit? I'm going to have to answer it myself eventually.
What your eyes can resolve?
Yeah, but what in the picture do you think the diffraction limit is? If you're looking out at a boat going over the horizon?
The horizon is the diffraction limit.
Jesus wept.
I'll tell you what. You hippie flurfers better get together and get your act together, because this sounds like a gaggle of friggin' flower children.
That was painful. Together. That was very painful.
What was the answer again? What was the answer again?
The horizon is the diffraction limit.
I said that. I said horizon a while ago.
He did say that. Yeah, he did say that.
Oh, I didn't hear you, Slick.
But if that is the case, does that literally mean that if a camera has a higher diffraction limit than another camera, that the apparent horizon is going to be further away with the higher diffraction limit camera?
Wait a second. Why are you discussing this between yourselves? You should already know this, right? What
Shut
is
up,
the diffraction
John.
limit?
I'm trying to actually figure out what the frick.
Don't be ashamed of your own ignorance. That's nothing to be ashamed about. This is the exercise we're doing. That's the point of this, right?
Haji Snavel Veta, and give me why the ships are going over the horizon. She said diffraction limit. So what is this diffraction limit? I need some cowbell.
Okay, because it's on the
The
hour
minimum
mark.
angular separation of two sources that can be distinguished by a telescope, depending on the wavelength of light being observed and the dimmer of the telescope. Diameter, sorry.
Can somebody, I'm watching the stream, can somebody pull this up so I can see what you're talking about?
I was just reading the definition on Google.
I thought the diffraction, it was simple. It's at what point your eyes can resolve an image or resolve something out there. I thought that was.
Is there okay? Let me ask it. Let me ask it this way: is there some quantitative measure of this diffraction limit?
Sorry. Through the sound of my kids screaming, we've been joined, thank God, by Life is Short. How you doing, Life is Short?
Hey Nathan. Hey John. Hey everybody. How you doing?
Very well indeed. Now, I'm hoping, for the love of God, please do give us a concise answer to the question on the table. Do you need me to summarise it, Life is Short, and then I'll round out this live show?
I kind of hopped on late. I think so. John's obviously playing a devil's advocate for some kind of like pseudo debate. I take it. So the question is why a boat will disappear over a horizon, correct?
Yes, and then the supplementary question that follows up. So the answer that came from the panel was the diffraction limit. That was the answer given, but there was no follow-up substance given to that answer. And now I've tried to keep my mouth shut and let the questions roll in from somebody who's basically on our side, Johnny Globehead here. But I'm hoping, like I say, to round out the live show, you can give us a reasonably concise answer that explains why the supplementary question, what is the diffraction limit, is so important in this regard.
Right. So the answer to me is kind of multifactorial. The premises are that things get smaller with distance. That's within perspective. And so to understand that, you have to know about orthogonal transversal lines and how that works, vanishing points, things like that. The second part would be small things disappear, and that would be the diffraction limit. So in late 1800s, Rayleigh and Abbey and several other scientists were looking at stars. They noted that the distance between the stars, once it got to a certain point, could no longer be resolved as a single unit. And so they started doing light experiments and noting diffraction patterns. And when the diffraction pattern there's a central disk within a diffraction pattern is just like a ripple in water. Think of it that way. When they overlapped by a certain amount, the two entities, the two diffraction patterns became one to the observer. And so they quantified this amount as a certain angle. And that angle represent the 50% overlap point between the two central diffraction pattern disks, which are called Aries disks. So that angle is we'll call it theta, and it's in radians, and it's equal to 1.22 times the wavelength of light that you're using divided by the aperture of the camera that you're using. And so it is dependent on the observer. And so you can take those two items, that small things or that things get smaller with distance and that small things do disappear, and you create a third scenario where small things disappear with distance secondary to perspective. And that to me is the basics of the argument. That's why it appears bottom first, because you compress the lower 50% of your vision against the tangible surface. You're limiting the angles at which you can view an object, or limiting the angle at which the light is emanating off that object to your eye. And so in other words, the transversal lines, which are like the horizontal line, think of it like the railroad ties on a railroad, they approach the horizon at a faster rate. And so when that object, let's say it's a railroad car, gets to the diffraction limit of your lower 50% of vision, as it moves away with distance, it sets within vision, and the bottom is no longer visible. That's the summary, I guess.
And where?
Long story short, your eyes and brain see what they need to see for your experience.
I'd muted to round out and then asked you a question with myself on mute like an idiot. So where does that occur?
Where does the horizon occur?
What? No, you've answered my question in your new question. At the horizon.
At the horizon.
And to me, it's quantifiable, and I think we've gone through that with several pictures and shown how the math actually does work out this way. And it is, to me, a new concept of vision that is very intriguing about vanishing points and vanishing lines and horizons, and that they are optical phenomena, not physical curvature.
But there's also meteorological phenomena too that will affect that as well.
Absolutely. I just don't want to get that into before the live show rounds out. So you are quite specifically describing, life is short, the vanishing point, correct?
Correct. It can be a point or it can be a line. It depends on whether or not you have walls, essentially.
Right. But if we were looking over water, it would be a line, and we would call that line what?
The horizon. The horizontal vanishing line is the horizon.
Absolutely perfect and succinctly put for the end of the live show. So if you're watching this on Nathan Oakley channel, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. However, if you're watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980, unfortunately this is where we bid you farewell. If you need to keep yourself occupied after the live stream is over, go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this live debate possible. I'll say again, stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley channel. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Yeah, so I saw that. I did do an aperture challenge. I will admit it is a difficult observation. There's a very fine line between when it works and when it doesn't. But to me, it's about a 10-minute video, 10 or 11 minute. I'm not looking for your money, man, to be honest. But I just thought when you provided that that option, I was like, well, why not? Why not show that aperture size does determine when things disappear with distance? And so I just did it with a light on the end of the floor. Unfortunately, I can't prove that. So I think the other individual was bringing up the fact that small obstructions in the foreground can obscure things in the further out, and that's very true. You only need about a couple millimeters worth if it's in the very near ground to completely obstruct something far away, and that is a true statement because that's just how your perspective works. But that doesn't mean it again. That doesn't mean that we live on a curved surface. It just means that the floor is uneven, and the floor could extend for miles, right?
Sure.
So, but to answer your question, I think I did find it. The obstruction amount would have to be pretty large. I think I calculated it has to be about a 4-centimeter height in order for this thing to not be essentially a diffraction limit scenario. But you can check it out if you.
You dang hippies can really talk for a long time. So this is this. I asked the question. He was supposed to answer me. So you friggin' hippie flurfers bring in a ringer. It gives me a bunch of word salad. So let me ask this. I did catch something out of your word salad. You said theta equals 1.22 times the wavelength of light is the diffraction limit. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that explains why I'm having a hard time with that explanation that ships go over the horizon hull first and disappear, and you give me the diffraction limit, finally, the Raleigh cigarettes, and you think that explains the issue.
Let me put it a different way, I guess. So the theta, the angle would, like, let's say, can you see a human hair on the ground? The answer would be dependent on theta, whether or not the angle that the light from the hair is reaching your eye is large enough, it is greater than theta in order for you to see it. Otherwise, you don't resolve it. It just blends into the surrounding. So you have to combine that knowledge that small things do disappear with how perspective works, that things get smaller with distance. and how do things get smaller with distance. You have to have an understanding of that in order to apply the diffraction limit. So, for instance, within the lower 50% of vision, you have to know if that is the same as the upper 50% of vision. And the answer is no if you are closer to the floor than you are to the ceiling. You can do this in any hallway. And so there is a differential compression rate at which the light is hitting your eye within perspective. So your horizon is brought closer in with the lower 50% vision, as things will set as they encroach on that point and go over the distance. If they get further away, you'll still see the top of them because the ceiling is higher than the floor. And I can show this to you over a good 6-hour time period that I think Ranty and I and Nathan went over, but
no, that's fine. I like your explanation so far because I can understand that, if there's a hair on the floor, that the further I get away from it, that hair is still going to be there, but it's going to disappear. That's a very good explanation. Thank you very much. And you're saying that has a hold on, wait a second. You're saying that has a direct relationship to my ship that's going over the horizon. All first.
Yes, when you add
is that what you're saying?
Perspective to that scenario, when you add in the perspective aspect, yes.
So you got to add in, so it's a combination. You have the diffraction limit and did you say perspective?
Yes, sir.
I'm not a sir. I call my dad sir. I'm Johnny Globehead. So what's perspective? Can you define it succinctly?
Well, that's actually that's a great question. I think it's yet to be perfectly defined. To me, it's the angles at which light is striking your eye and the manner in which a convex lens is reconverging those light rays onto a sensor.
There's also a third variable that you guys aren't considering, which is atmospheric conditions or meteorological conditions.
No, I totally agree, and that's a refraction issue. That's so Nathan put it well a while back. Refraction is the angle at which the light is bent prior to striking the aperture. Once the light strikes the aperture, it then diffracts, and you have a totally separate phenomenon going on, which is the diffraction limit. So refraction.
Okay. Hold on a second. How are you bending particles? Because light is made of photons, and photons are particles. So, how do you bend particles?
You.
Here we go.
Okay, so wave particle duality and everything. I won't get into that, but essentially it's Snell's law. So light travels through a medium and it refracts.
Yeah, but it's traveling. You're saying, but that light is traveling through the same medium, or more or less the same medium when I'm looking at that boat, because I'm on shore and that boat is on sea level. So there's not any different gradients. If there are, they're slight.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm not proposing that that's the main argument. I was just answering the individual who said we're discounting, dirty air or atmospheric effects. I'm saying
right.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yeah, we didn't want to bring that because that's another variable, right?
Yes, we do. Hold on. Sorry, Johnny Globehead. Yes, we do want to bring that up because it's absolutely part of this when you're factoring in the answer to how do boats disappear, quote unquote, over the curve, which they don't. Well, yeah, there's going to be three elements to this. One is the diffraction limit. One is been described by Life is Short as perspective, and the other is the atmospheric conditions. So yes, it's absolutely relevant. It's just we're on the perspective bit. That's we will get to it though, Nathan.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
what, are you talking to yourself? I thought your name was Nathan.
There's two Nathans.
Oh. Is there two Vanillas?
No.
There's 7 billion Johnny Globeheads though.
Yes, definitely. So let's get back on track. So, you said that it's not so easy as to succinctly summarize perspective, but you would describe it as the angles that enter your eye. I'm sorry, I'm butchering I'm paraphrasing it terribly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So what you could say is that light exits or it was reflected off of an object at the inverse square law. The convex lens then takes that light and reconverges it onto a sensor to create an image And you must have two angles, or you must have two rays essentially to create an angle for the image to appear, let's say. In other words, you can't just have a straight line go through a lens and hit the back of a sensor and create an image. An image requires two rays to create an angle. And that angle, that the smaller the angle, the less you can see of that object.
So
Okay.
you're saying the angle to which I'm seeing, let's use the hair. So you're saying the angle that I'm looking at the hair, I see the full hair and I back up and I'm backing up and the hair slowly starts to disappear. I can barely make it out. Are you saying that's the diffraction limit and perspective, or just the diffraction limit or perspective?
Well, that's just
It is
the
because
diffraction limit within perspective. But when I say perspective, I'm talking about the effect of a horizon. So I would just classify that as diffraction limit within within some field of vision within perspective. So it's not without regard to a horizon or vanishing point.
And horizon is what? How is horizon defined?
To me, a horizon is an optical phenomenon based on the smallest point of light that can be viewed with distance.
Is it real? Is it real?
No, it's an apparent line, I guess, or point.
Right. So I can change it based on a number of things. Number one being my elevation.
Yes, your
Correct.
angle of view.
Fair enough. Is there any other things that can change that?
Yes.
The wavelength and the aperture.
Yes, and humidity. Humidity has a huge part to do with that as well.
Okay, so it's highly variable, is what you say. It's not a hard line for everyone at every time at every single condition.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you. That's a good explanation.
And that's why my horizon at 18 miles is different than your horizon. However far it took for that boat to get, quote unquote, over the horizon, it's not the same amount. And if you look at a Earth curvature calculator, which shows where it would be on a ball, it's beyond that. So for anybody, if you are living on a ball, for anybody, if you are 6 feet tall, your horizon would be 3 miles. That is not what we see. When you are on the beach and you're seeing your boat go over the horizon, you could go to the same beach at the same time the very next day, and possibly, depending on if those variables have been changed, see the boat further and watch it go beyond a new, different horizon, because you now have all of those variables have changed and your horizon or apparent horizon has now changed as well. Just like I've been to Monterey Bay, and one day I could not see something that was on the other side, and another day that I went back, I could see something that was on the other side, because those variables are changing.
That's a very good explanation, and I have seen and witnessed things like that before. So it's highly variable. So it took over an hour and a half to get some semblance of an explanation of my boat going over the horizon with you hippies. So what I suggest
I was trying to explain the atmosphere thing, because that is the thing that changes.
That is the main
That is the variable that changes the most, because your distance viewed from the objects, if you're looking at the same object the whole time, the distance isn't varying. And if you're looking from the same altitude both times, your altitude's not varying. So the thing that is varying is the weather.
I understand that. You just explained that. That's fine. Now, I'm going to take all this information in. I'm coming back, because you guys' feet, your hippies' feet's going to be held to the fire again, because I'm not totally satisfied, even though you brought in your little ringer over here, little hippie ringer. Let me think about this, and then I'm going to come back, because I still don't think you answered my question fully. However, let me consider it for a time, and I'll come back with some more questions.
Well, let me succinctly summarize the points, as it took an hour. So the three factors that would need to be taken into consideration would be, number one, the item that is being viewed, its size and its distance, so that you can calculate the angular resolution, i.e. the point
and its
that...
height. The target
I'm getting
height
there,
as
I'm
well
getting
as-
there. So the first of three things would be the physical size of something that you are viewing, its angular resolution based on its distance. The second thing described by Life is Short as perspective, the angle you are viewing from, because the lower the angle, the more condensed that lower section of the 50% of the frame of your view becomes, inducing that effect that was described in part 1, i.e. something will have a more limited angle to view it in if you lower your elevation. So number 1, the size of the object being viewed, i.e. the boat. Number 2, the angle that you view it from, i.e. your elevation. And number 3, the conditions, the atmospheric conditions on the day that you view the boat. So those 3 things would be the 3 factors that are, if you want to call it this, causing the boat to vanish from bottom up.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That was very concise. That's 3 issues that I need to take into account. It's very good. Back to the ringer. He said before that light bends, but light's made of photons. This is just a side point. I'm just going to give this to him. He doesn't have to answer it now. I want to know how you can bend particles. So that's for the ringer the next time he comes on.
Light is not a particle, not a photon. It's a state of induction.
You can watch. You can just look on YouTube. You can refract light through different mediums. It refracts at different rates, and that also includes air because there is a density layer of air. When you have a cold density, it goes lower above the water, and a warm density is above that. So even though it's the same medium, you have 2 different densities. So it's having to pass through from the different densities, and that causes the light to bend either up or down, and that's known as refraction.
No, there's a miscommunication. Sorry, I've got to correct that. No. So if the light is being refracted, it is changing its direction. It's not bending.
Right.
It does continue to bend.
So it's
the
not
further
bending.
it goes.
It's changing direction subtly and or linearly. Like it will just move from one essentially path, one vector, and it will hit a medium and it will change direction into that new pathway. The bending aspect is an apparent bending because you're changing medium gradually, over time. And so it just keeps hitting new and new mediums, and
Right.
it gives the appearance of a curve or a bend, but it's in essence multiple straight lines.
Right.
Man, you guys have got to find a way to do a long story short, man. I was about to stab myself in the foot with a fork.
But
the damn hippies are long-winded. I'll give you that.
Just before that gets derailed. So many of the explanations that Life is Short is giving are the same explanations that are given by globeheads. So if you're hearing some semblance of familiarity, there is a reason for that. So you've heard this explanation before. It just gets attributed to... Can whoever's making that noise mute? It just gets attributed to 7/6R and a claim that the presupposition that the Earth has a sphericity and therefore the gradient of the medium going through ever-increasing mediums as it goes over the bend is what is asserted. But that's subtly different to the reality that's described by the atmospheric stacking, if you want to call it, of having increasing thicknesses of atmosphere as you look over a greater and greater distance. But the effect that induces is still the same. It just gets hijacked and then used as a description for this arbitrary 7/6R. Would you agree? Life is Short, because it's the same explanation.
Say that I think they have it backwards. If there is a standard refraction to be had, I think they actually have it in the wrong direction. And so I created a calculator based on the reverse of 7/6R and across a flat surface, and you get remarkably accurate numbers and predictions for how much is cut off in the distance, and it takes into account diffraction and refraction.
Wait a second. You said prediction. Wait a second. Sorry to interrupt. You said predictions.
Yes.
Is that what you said? Okay. So what's is this a scientific prediction?
No, because I can't back up where they got 7/6R really from. So I assume they got it from somewhere.
All right, thank you. I just wanted clarification. Go on.
Well, I think they got it from just simple observations. I think they're getting it from they're getting it from the same place you are. They're just utilizing the mathematics differently.
They're assuming downward refraction. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Right.
Also assuming a radius.
Right.
And they're manipulating it in their favor.
Nobody addressed you, Vanilla.
They're going. This is R, but now we're going to change it to 7/6R, just because we need it to do that to work with our mathematical equation.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's rooted in, I don't know if this is the right word. It's rooted in truth. In other words, yeah, we don't know where they've got that from, but as I just asserted, I would assume that it's come from simple observation and then calculating it out the same way, but then applying it to a model that ignores perspective so that you can get the same outcome as the original observation. So in other words, there is a semblance of truth in what they declare using the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, because it matches. It's reasonably accurate. I know it's begging the question. I know it's not proving a sphere. My point is that, well, why would it match up so well? Well, because it's based on legit data to begin with. It doesn't matter that they've hijacked the data to make their assertion at the end. They're still getting a reasonably accurate result. And when Life is Short details his explanation, it's akin to their explanation. It's just more, it's based on a flat plane reality rather than a begging the question, hijacking and assumption of R.
Yeah, so here, I'll just give you real quick too. There's this video, and the reason I came to this was a couple observations. One was Ranty's, one was John D's, or there's a few, and then one was Red Pill. So John D has done a ton of these where you're looking at laser light over water, and almost bar none, it's always either straight or refracting upward. And the Ranty has done some time lapses. He did it inadvertently, where one day he had a time lapse from a 4-foot elevation, and then he did the next day he did a single point in time observation where he went from multiple heights within a short time frame, and you can see that they are exactly the same. And I go through the kind of the optics, I guess, of how that works out. But the final, to me, the nail in the coffin for me personally, it doesn't have to be it's subjective. But Red Pill had this observation in January where he had this crystal clear day where the temperature of the water was exactly the same as the temperature of the air, and there were no waves at all. The ocean was, I mean, it was pristine. And so he has this observation, and he has this bush or this tree in the foreground of all these multiple observations that he's made over time of this condominium complex about 15 miles away. And so I use that bush or that tree to create a standard line to standardize the horizon point or the horizon line, what the apparent horizon was against that tree. And I just compared all these multiple pictures. And his height was essentially the same for all of them. It could have been a few feet. We've talked about this. It could have been a couple or maybe 1 or 2 feet different at the most. But he said in all, it was probably almost exactly the same height. And so when you do this, you see that the crystal clear day where he could see the furthest, there were almost no refractive effects at all. There was no mirroring. There was no compression and expansion of the floors. Perfect. It was awesome. It has the highest horizon line. And then every other picture after that where he's missing, 4 floors, he's missing then 2 floors. He has a ton of compression and expansion. There's a ton of mirroring going on. All those effects, when you put the horizon line across those ones against this tree, they're all lower. So in other words, the best resolution day with the least refractive effects has the highest horizon line, and all other days have the lower horizon lines, which is upward refraction, which is an upward refraction phenomenon, because your eye takes that upwardly bending light that's reaching you, and it creates a straight line from it, and it bends the thing downward. So they assume the opposite. For them, they have to assume that those days where you have all that mirroring and all that compression and expansion and all those kinds of effects are actually the true thing that you're seeing. And that day when you saw the crystal clear day with perfect, floors and no mirroring is the looming day, right? And that's the reason you see it all clearly, is because it's loomed up. So anyway, to me, that it's one of the nails in the coffin. We've talked about this like for 5 hours, so I don't want to get into too much.
Yeah,
but,
man,
but
you're
check that
killing
out
me.
if you want to. It's a pretty good explanation, I guess.
No, I absolutely love it, because your end bit is the most pertinent to me, which is to say that when you have an assertion that there's an Earth curve and they're using the reification fallacy and the begging the question on steroids that is 7/6R, they assert that the muddy, miragey, crap day is Earth curve, i.e. a physical obstruction, the horizon, the diffraction limit, is actually a physical thing blocking your view of something in the distance. And you can see it's all blurry and crap, and that's when they make their assertions. And like you say, when you see Red Pill's video, and it's basically perfect, that's when you've got mirages. It's like there's no mirage effects, everything's crystal clear, you can see further than ever, it's a beautiful day, everything looks perfect. But that is, as you assert, when they say, oh no, that would be a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of those buildings from behind the Earth curve that we assume with the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. That's what they assert when they see a crystal clear picture.
Yep.
I was just trying to hear the long story short version, but go ahead.
Long story short, they've taken perspective, hijacked it, and called it curve. There you go, short.
Oh, no, I got you. I'm just saying sometimes when these guys go into explanations, you get lost in it because it's so long, you just can't absorb it all.
So I'll summarize what I just said. Essentially,
No, you don't have to summarize it. No, it's fine. I got it. Don't even worry about it.
Looming is, I cannot find true looming. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, looming's nonsense. Basically, you get a crappy day, or you lower your elevation too far to see on a crappy day, or you get perfect vision and crystal clarity, which they then call looming, and it's total bollocks.
Looming is like the land being projected up to the horizon, like the bat signal.
Yeah, basically, it's an aberration.
Life is short.
Right? It's not really there. That's why we have so much fun with the Mackled Lighthouse. It's not really there. You've got a picture of it, and you can look at the picture of it. There it is. You can see it. I've been there and seen it with my own eyes. But when you show it to them, they say it's not really there. You're not really seeing it. It's behind Earth curve because the model says so. So what you're actually seeing is a mirage. And it isn't. You're just seeing a lighthouse. There it is. You're looking at it.
Right. It doesn't mean that that thing can't move within your vision, but it is that object is that object. And so, yeah, I know that's kind of complex, I guess, because you can see things like within a time lapse moving up and down. But my overall point is that the baseline, the best or most accurate position is at the highest position, not the lowest.
Yeah, I was trying to get that to Anthony. I mean, he looked out. Is that the right term? I always get those confused. So he was being challenged by Slice Barcane to get lower. And I was saying to him, that's just what they want. You're going to, force the angle, although I didn't know the terminology at the time. But I was saying, no, that's the converse of what you want. You want to get higher. You want to go to the top of the toppest hill, the highest hill, and get a ladder. Get even higher. Get as high as you possibly can. Increase your angle to the things you're looking at, and you'll get better clarity. Now, luckily for Anthony, he went down to the beach on a perfect day, got on his belly, set up his camera, and still managed to see the stuff 34 miles away, because like Red Pill, he got a perfect day. Now, it still had the diffraction limit. You're still looking over the surface and got a very, very limited angle, but with his P900 super zoom camera, he still managed to see the land with that induced angle. Just incredible, really, because I was saying, don't do it. You'll never achieve it. The lower you go, the less you'll see. It's just that simple. But he still managed to do it. And it's a similar story with Red Pill, right? He's not seeing the bottoms of the buildings. When you go out on a perfectly clear day, you do.
Yeah. He did, and actually, what was weird on that day was I thought he would have at least lost something, but he lost nothing. It was a crazy observation. But then what's weird is when he panned out, just like another maybe mile away, everything started to get obscured again, and it got obscured from 17, 19 to 23 to 25 miles, perfectly linearly, exactly in line with what Theta would predict for the amount of loss for each of those things. So it just didn't really do it. We just didn't really see it closer in. And I've kind of explained that a little bit. I think it has to do with the wavelengths of light that he was seeing in, and the brightness of there's all sorts of factors that go into not just the Rayleigh criteria, but there's other formulations as well, that Abby put out that have to do with illumination, and brightness of the field and so forth. But Rayleigh's is kind of our basic formula, our most accurate formula for gross observations.
Sure, but what you're saying is, so I don't know if Nathan's still around, hopefully so.
Yeah.
In this instance, when you have that perfect day, and in this instance the air temperature and water temperature are basically identical, and you've got the best clarity you can get, at that point you can just use the Rayleigh criterion and use the simple maths for just how much should be disappearing based on its angular resolution, as opposed to factoring in the third part of the triangle, which is the atmospheric conditions. Because in this instance, as Life is Short has just said, you can just do the basic maths on how much should or shouldn't be there and come out with the correct answer, because there is no atmospheric conditions messing everything up.
Yeah, right. But what I was saying was, when I did that according to 1 arc minute at least, I calculated that he should at least lost about 10 to 11 feet, and he didn't. It looked like he didn't lose any of that. And so the resolution limit was much lower at that point, and I calculated out. I think it was like a half arc minute or less. And so, but when he started to pan outward and looking through, we'll call, the dirty air, right? He started looking through more and more dirty air. Those wavelengths started to get a little bit different, and the resolution angle went back up to about that 1 arc minute point, and then everything from that point on was perfectly, linearly getting obscured by the exact amount almost you would predict. So it's an evolving. We're all kind of evolving with this whole thing over time. I think it's a fascinating.
Evolving, like evolution or something?
Oh God,
Well,
don't start.
No, let's not go there.
Well, yeah.
So Slick, what do you think about his explanation there?
Just way too long. Just way too long. Because what happens is when you're explaining something like that, that's nice if you're in the field. But if you got lay people just listening to it, it's like they can't follow you because it's just.
I like listening. I like learning it.
Yeah, I know. I'm not finished. I was ready to stab a fork in my foot. So I'm just saying, some people will like learning, and others will like to jump off a bridge.
Oh, Slick, you're ace.
I mean, it's important to actually go. It's important to go out and do your own observation. I like stressing that. Like I said, you could be in the same spot the same day, even hours later, and not even necessarily days later, hours later, and you'll see something totally different. And so I encourage everybody to go out and do their own observations, because the math, and this is what I want to make, the math is math, and that's on paper. That doesn't reflect real life. And just like you said. The calculations, he expected to see something different from the calculations, but when you're out in the real world, that's the only time you're actually seeing reality. You're not seeing a calculation, you're seeing what's really there or what's not there.
Excellent way to round out the after show. So with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the audience in the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for tuning in, smashing the super chat, hopefully sharing this premiering after show. Also, of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this after show possible. If you need something to keep you occupied after the premiere has ended, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!